Hello, and welcome to IB, Expanding Minds and Opening Doors. My name is Mary Austin, and I'm the District Coordinator for the International Baccalaureate Program Continuum here in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. This new program will focus on the International Baccalaureate, or IB program continuum in our school system and across the world. Currently, Anne Arundel County Public Schools is home to 11 IB elementary schools, 3 IB middle schools, and 3 IB high schools that serve approximately 14,000 students in our system. Our guest today is Drew Deutsch, Director for the IB Americas region of the International Baccalaureate Organization. Welcome, Drew. Thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to share information about the International Baccalaureate with the Anne Arundel County community.
Well, that's wonderful. Drew, could we start by talking about how you first became involved with the International Baccalaureate, or IB, organization?
That's great. I'd be happy to. You'd sort of have to rewind more years than I care to admit, but back in the 80s, I actually had the benefit of an IB education and took part in the diploma program. So I had the opportunity during my final 2 years of high school to go through all the requirements of the diploma and really benefit from all the skills that the diploma program fostered during my learning in high school. And then fast forward many decades later, I got a call from a recruiter who was looking to fill the position for the regional director overseeing the Americas for the International Baccalaureate. So back in 2008, I joined the organization as the regional director, and in my role, I work with a staff of 50 regional staff members, as well as over 600 global colleagues who work to support schools throughout the world, offer the best-in-class international education to students from K through 12.
It's fascinating you come full circle. So Drew, for our viewers, what exactly is an IB education?
An IB education is many things. I think it's important to sort of rewind to when the IB was founded in 1968. So originally, the founders of the IB had two main goals in mind in building an IB education. The first was to bring about a better world through education. So basically, the students of today will be the leaders of tomorrow. So we want to instill the appropriate internationally minded values as well as critical thinking skills that are important to build future leaders for tomorrow that will bring about a future, peaceful world. In addition to creating a better world through education, the founders wanted to create a graduation credential at the high school level that would be recognized around the world for what, at the time, in the international private school market where the founders worked, was very important. If they have a student who starts high school in, let's say, Geneva and is moving to the US in the next year, they wanted to give that student the ability to go to university with a high school graduating credential that was recognized by universities around the world. And fast forward to the 90s, and we added to the diploma program, which was the first program, by adding the primary years program for elementary schools and the middle years program for middle schools. And those programs, in addition to the diploma program, really fostered the same values as the diploma program, developing the whole child, bringing a strong element of international mindedness, whether that's through cross-cultural understanding, second language acquisition, and really student-centered transdisciplinary learning in terms of more of a liberal arts-based education. So those values were brought down to the elementary and middle school levels with the advent of the PYP and the MYP in the 90s. And then most recently in 2012, we added to that the career program, which is offered by some schools here in the United States and around the world, that basically takes the best of the diploma and adds a career or vocational element to the IB education.
Wonderful. So we're using a lot of initials, I think, today. We're talking about the PYP, the MYP, the DP. Could you take a minute to tell us a little bit about what those initials stand for and what's unique about each of those programs?
That's great. Sure. We'll start at the elementary school level, which is the PYP, or primary years program, and it's a transdisciplinary program that requires full integration of all the subjects that students are learning, and it requires all students in a building to participate in the program. And you walk into a PYP school, whether it's here in Anne Arundel County or in Japan, and you really can tell it's an IB school. There's incredible artwork on the walls. You see students guiding the discussion in the classroom, and the teacher really serving more as a mentor or coach and leading the students through a particular program of inquiry or lesson unit, if you will. So walking into a PYP school is pretty unique. And then, of course, fundamental to all of our programs is second language acquisition. So not many elementary schools, or as budgets become constrained, elementary schools find it difficult to offer second language instruction. But one of the fundamental pieces of the primary years program, as well as the other programs, is that second language acquisition. So moving up into the middle school, the middle years program, as students become a little bit more specialized, there is departmentalization allowed, so they can have subject-specific teachers, unlike in the PYP where the homeroom teacher is basically teaching almost everything. In the middle years program, there's a little bit more freedom to explore on the part of the student, but again, you see full school implementation. And the interesting thing about the MYP, it's generally housed at both the middle school and then grades 9 and 10 in the high school. So the MYP, or middle years program, bridges both middle school and high school, and then dovetails beautifully with the diploma program that's offered at grade 11 and 12, and really focuses on college and career preparation and rigorous college level academics.
So you mentioned this whole school approach to implementation a few times with the primary years and the middle years program. If it's for everybody, what makes it different?
Just the fact that it is for everybody makes it different from many other academic programs. So it's not a gifted and talented program. It's not a program for a select few students who need, special support. It is a program for all students. There's still opportunity for teachers and instructors to differentiate instruction within this whole school model. But what it is it gets all of the teachers within a building really excited about their profession again, and it gets all students, in a way, working together towards reinforcing these ideas, international mindedness, community service, and really approaching the world from a different perspective than what you see in some standard academic programs.
Wonderful. Now you mentioned a fourth program as well, the career program?
Yep. So the career program was rolled out and introduced to the IB community in 2012. And what it does, as I mentioned before, it takes the best of the diploma program and adds to it what's already being offered in the high school from a career and technical education standpoint, or a career-related study. And it adds things like a community service component, a culminating project, which is similar to the other three programs. So a student in their personal project will work on an ethical issue facing their career-related field. So let's say you're studying engineering. You might do a civic engineering personal project about how, let's say, elderly residents within a community are transported to various places in the community. So that might be a civil engineering ethical project that you might focus on for your personal project. So you take those two elements and you put them together, and you really prepare a student for either college or going directly into the career field of their choosing. And the interesting thing about the career program is, starting in 2016, schools will be able to offer that as a standalone program. Currently, today, the career program can only be offered by schools that also offer the diploma program.
So you referenced a culminating project. I know we spoke about it just now with the career program. How might that look in the primary years or middle years program, or even the diploma program?
Okay. We'll start at the diploma program because that is probably the best known of the culminating projects, and it's called an extended essay. So what a student starts working on as they enter 11th grade and finish up towards the beginning of 12th grade is an extended essay. It's a college-level research paper in a subject of the student's choosing that basically will be roughly 20 pages long, and it's like an end-of-term thesis, if you will. And unique to the IB is the extended essay, as well as all the exams that the students take, either at the end of junior year or at the end of senior year. All of those exams are externally assessed by a global pool of IB examiners that are looking at student work using an internationally referenced rubric. So students here in Anne Arundel County are being evaluated on the same standards that students in the most elite private school in Japan are evaluated on.
That's exciting.
Yep. And then you look at other IB programs like the MYP. You have the personal project at the end of 10th grade. It's a very similar thing, but instead of producing a 20-page research paper, you basically have to produce and display a personal project that you've been working on during middle school. And generally schools have a personal project day, and they actually an exhibition of those personal projects for the parent community and the broader community to come and see the students' work that they've been working so hard on for a year or more.
And the primary years program?
It's very similar. It's an exhibition. It's a little bit lower sort of in terms of intensive, but really what all of the IB programs try to do in terms of instilling in students is the ability to be articulate and present themselves and really, hone in on the ideas that they have as an individual in the society that we all live in. So through the exhibition, the personal project, the extended essay, the student is really delving into an issue that they find important to themselves and learning how to express themselves, whether it's standing up in front of a group of people or parents or writing a thesis paper to basically demonstrate all of the skills that they've acquired in their IB programs.
So is it fair to say that these projects, these culminating projects, are appropriate to the level, the ability of a student at that time in their education then?
Absolutely. So, we're not going to give a fifth grader the assignment of doing an extended essay. Instead, we save that for a high school student who's about to go on to college, where they're going to be expected to write, long papers in the span of a weekend or the span of a semester. So that's a skill you need for college. The exhibition at the primary years program, reinforces skills that student's going to need to succeed in middle school. And similarly, at the personal project culminating experience of the middle years program, it basically exhibits and reinforces skills that a student's going to need to succeed in high school.
So we talked about a lot of different components of the programs. What would you say are the advantages? There are many educational programs out there. What are the advantages for a student participating in one level of an IB program or across the continuum, primary years, middle years, and the diploma program?
I think the thing that ties all the programs together is a great answer to your question. It's the development of critical thinking skills that are age appropriate. So if you look at the primary years or PYP program that's here in Anne Arundel at elementary schools across the district, a student is developing knowledge as well as an approach to how to look at the world through inquiry-based learning. So basically, a fundamental piece of the PYP is teaching or sort of guiding students really, and in the development of skills about how to ask questions about the world around them. So that's a common theme that we want students across all the IB programs to be really good at. We want them to question, not just questioning authority, but question why is this or that about the world around them the way it is. And that skill is really developed at first in the PYP program and reinforced through various aspects of the curriculum throughout the MYP, the middle years program, and the diploma program.
Wonderful. So the students are equipped with the ability to know how to ask questions and then perhaps to take action on the answers that they receive through the questions they're asking in the classroom in the school.
Absolutely, and taking action is an important thing that we haven't touched on yet. And again, a common thread through all of our programs is this aspect of action and community service. So if you look at the diploma program, there's something called CAS, or Community Action and Service. So it's about taking what you're learning in the classroom and taking the questions that you've learned how to ask about the world around you and taking action, having a positive impact on the community around you, and not just doing things inside your school or inside your home.
So it's an international program. When we say not doing things just inside your school or your home, does every project have to be something massive of global scale?
No, like I referenced with the career program and looking at how to transport the elderly in your community to whether it's the supermarket or doctor's offices, that could be very local, but it has an externally facing question and exploration of a solution associated with it. So you're positively impacting your local community. Certainly there are many students who do personal projects that ask broader questions that go on an international level, and they might form relationships with students at other IB schools around the world, but that's not a requirement of the action component of an IB education.
Do you see a lot of relationships forming between IB schools or IB students in schools across the world?
Absolutely. I think one of the great things about being an IB school is you have access to a community of over close to 5,000 programs around the world. Right here in the Americas, there are 3,000 IB programs hosted in 2,500 schools. Sort of gives you an instant network of, pen pals, if you will. Not that anybody, writes letters anymore, but I've seen, a couple of months ago, I participated in an event where a school in Atlanta had partnered up with a sister school in France that were both IB MYP schools, and they had actually created over the years a cultural exchange. So students would visit each school, and they not only visit each other face to face, but stay in touch over the year through Skype and other online tools.
So it's opening a lot of doors for our students, perhaps that might not otherwise be available to them.
Yeah, it's opening doors for students who can collaborate with students around the world, but it's also opening doors for instructional staff. a big piece of, becoming an IB school is professional development for instructors to teach them and get them more comfortable with inquiry-based learning as an example. But at those workshops, instructors here in Anne Arundel County have, the opportunity to interact and share best practices with teachers at other IB schools, whether it be here in Maryland or other parts of the United States, or even in some circumstances we have educators from Europe or elsewhere come to workshops here in the United States.
So I'd love to touch upon that fact again when we come back from the break, and also talk a bit about college acceptance rates and how an IB education might best prepare our students for their entry into college.
I'm Corporal Gamble with the Anne Arundel County Police. When driving through a school zone, please be cautious of pedestrians and children that could be near the road and or crossing the road. Fines in a school zone are increased.
Welcome back. We're talking with Drew Deutsch, Director of IB Americas. So Drew, before the break, we were beginning to speak about the benefits to educators who are involved in the International Baccalaureate or IB program as well. So what should a teacher, a principal, a guidance counselor who's lucky enough to work in an IB school expect?
Oh, that's a great question. What can they expect? I think what they can expect is, as I mentioned before the break, an energized instructional team that recognizes the importance of collaborating among colleagues across grade levels, across subjects. And from, a student perspective, I think what educators, tell me from, when they first set foot into a high-performing IB school is that the level of student inquiry and intellect and curiosity is different than what they have experienced in other schools during their career. So for the most part, unanimously really, what I hear from educators is they love working in IB schools. Yes, it means a little bit more work for teachers, but really, the fact that students are so engaged in the learning really gives back and makes that hard work worth it for teachers.
So is it fair to say that it's more work or work that's done differently for the educators in IB schools?
I think it's really work that's done differently. There's a whole different way of teaching an IB class which really embraces best practices. It's the secret to the IB success is we run around the world and we look at best practices in different educational systems and educational environments, and we bring them back to our programs. So for instance, one of the, quote-unquote old school ways of teaching is chalk and talk, where a teacher stands at the blackboard and runs through a problem, and then the students memorize things. And IB education is unique, but best practice in teaching said that's a bad way to teach. What you want to do is, again, have a constructivist approach where the students are really leading the learning in the classroom. So the teachers walking around, interacting with smaller groups of students, and that's what you see in IB schools.
So by a constructivist approach, you mean the students are actually taking part in constructing, building what they understand and learn about a topic?
Absolutely, well said.
Thank you. So we talked about how work needs to be done differently. It's a different approach. Is there professional development? Is there support that's offered to IB teachers and other employees, faculty members in an IB World School?
Absolutely. A big piece of being a part of the IB community on the part of a school is a commitment to ongoing professional development for instructional staff. So to that end, here in the Americas alone, we train over 40,000 teachers a year from Alaska down to Chile, with the majority of those teachers being trained here in the United States. So again, a big piece of making sure that an IB program is successful and that students have the best possible learning experience during a school year is the provision of professional development for IB teachers here in Anne Arundel County and across the U.S. and the region and the world.
And that training is brought to the schools, or educators go out?
It really varies. So we have trainings, usually once a year in Baltimore, but we also bring training here to the local Washington, D.C. area. I think we had a most recent training that we call our D.C. large workshop, and we had about 600 teachers from across 7 or 8 local districts where we brought the training to the districts.
So it's exciting. Teachers get to come together with other educators from other parts of the country, the region, the county in this case, and share ideas.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I'm often asked about from parents in particular is, how is the IB going to give my child an advantage in terms of college? Being accepted to a college, perhaps receiving scholarship money, even how well they do once they're in college. Could you speak to some of those things for us?
Absolutely. Well, having been an IB graduate myself, I know the benefit of my IB education when I got to campus at Georgetown, which was my alma mater. Not only did the fact that I had gone through the IB diploma help me get in, but it also helped me develop the skills that I needed to succeed at university, whether it's the ability to write a 10-page paper over the weekend or to think about, the topic at hand in a very critical way. So those skills, help students in terms of college success, but also help students getting into college. So a great sort of anecdote is in IB Americas, we have something called the College and University Relations Committee, which is made up of a number of admissions officials or VP of enrollment at various universities. And we have some, great universities represented on that committee. And hands down, they tell me at every meeting that we meet a couple of times a year, how much they value IB students on their campuses. And they actually go out of their way to make sure that they attract as many IB applicants. And we're talking about schools like Stanford, Michigan, University of British Columbia. So these are great schools that have highly competitive application processes, yet they want IB students. They want as many IB students to apply as possible. And then there are some schools around across the United States and around the world that not only do they give preferential treatment to IB applicants, but they'll even give advanced course credit, whether it's placing out of freshman requirements to as extreme as sophomore standing and free parking spots on campus, which are important at some larger state schools.
Oh, that's the first. I've never heard about the free
Yep.
parking spots. So
Oregon State University will give parking spaces to freshmen, which apparently is a hot commodity on campus.
That's fascinating. So I often hear from our own IB graduates, about their experience once they get to college or university and how they find it to be frankly easier than perhaps that the feeling that's experienced by their peers. What is it that makes them feel that way, do you think?
I think it's the level of rigor that is present in the diploma program curriculum. So if you're taking, an IB standard level math class or an IB higher level math class, you're doing college level math. I did standard level math, and I cruised through, Calculus 1 when I got to Georgetown and got an A in it and didn't really have to think. I had a great math teacher in high school, and the curriculum that I was learning at the time in high school really matched what I was doing at Georgetown. So it really does prepare students, not only from a content perspective, but also in a critical thinking way, and more importantly, it gives students confidence. So going through the diploma program and the middle years program and PYP program, gradually, as students get older, they become incredibly confident. Most freshmen, when they enter that first freshman class, whether it's a big chemistry class in a lecture hall of 300 people, most students don't feel comfortable raising their hand and articulating their questions or difficulties with the material. IB students don't have that problem because they develop that confidence through the K through 12 experience.
So the confidence on top of the educational background they have really serves them well in that university study.
Absolutely.
Good to hear. Do you perhaps have, if parents or students were looking for data on a particular college's acceptance rate or policy or how they might treat the results of IB exams,
Yep.
is there a place that they can seek that through the IB?
Yeah, they can go on our website, and if they just search for destination survey, I think it's still up there. It's a self-reported study. So we surveyed students during the summer after their high school graduation in terms of where they applied and where they were accepted. And what the study showed, and obviously it's self-reported, so the data is not bulletproof. But what it showed is there are many top schools, including the Ivies, where the admission rate for IB students was twice as high as the general acceptance rate for places like Stanford, Brown. So IB education really helps students in terms of the competitive college admissions process. And then more importantly, what I look to is how well an IB education is preparing students to stay in college and graduate within 4 years. So I have a couple of stats that I'd love to share with you. The first is 78% of diploma program students enrolled immediately in post-secondary education following high school, whereas the national average is 69%, so almost a 10% difference.
Right.
And then two more stats. The first year retention rate of DP students was 98% at college and university versus a national average of 77%. So 70% of students on a national basis don't finish out their freshman year of college. 98% of IB DP grads do.
So
it's a
diploma program students.
Exactly, diploma program, sorry. And then finally, the 4-year graduation rate among all DP participants. So those are students who either earned the diploma, hopefully, but even if they didn't earn the diploma, their 4-year graduation rate was at 79% versus a national average. Can you guess? What do you think the national average was?
50?
39%. So if you look at that 79 versus 39, diploma program students have an edge in terms of their success in college as well as getting into college of their choice.
So you mentioned a moment ago whether or not students actually achieve the IB diploma, earn the IB diploma. Certainly that's a goal for us, for all the students. We hope it's a goal for the students themselves. But often we talk about, is there a value? If I leave, if I'm an IB diploma student and I leave and I don't actually attain the IB diploma, is there still a value added to my experience? How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the value, obviously it's great to be recognized for all your hard work, but earning the diploma, particularly in the U.S. college admissions process, isn't the be-all and end-all. Like, the most important thing in my mind is that the student, attempted and really, took advantage of the great academic program that is offered at their school. And if a student, got sick during their exam in May, or something went wrong and for some reason didn't get the diploma, they still had all the benefits during the 2 years of that diploma program to prepare them for college.
And may have done very well in individual exams that make up the actual diploma score itself.
Absolutely.
So can you talk about, outside of the college piece, what other interesting, unique, international even opportunities might be available to IB students that might not necessarily be there or be as readily accessible by students who don't go through the IB?
Okay. One of the things that we've done over the last few years is we host an IB World Student Conference, which is a great event that has taken place in places like Rochester University, a university in Barcelona. We had it at Wake Forest a couple of years ago. We also hosted it at McGill. And what it is, it's a week-long, not really camp, but it's a World Student Conference that takes place over 5 days, where students delve into an important global issue. So whether it's sustainability, the environment, entrepreneurship. So each location historically has had a particular important topic that students explore in what we call global action teams. So they form groups of 15 to 20 students, and it's basically a theory of knowledge course on steroids. And theory of knowledge is one of the key aspects of the diploma program, where it gets students to think about ways that we know the world around us, so a study of knowledge, if you will. So that 5-day experience is where students from across the IB world come together. So I sat in on one session recently where there was a student from an inner city public school in Philadelphia sitting next to a student who had gone to an elite private school in Africa, and they were talking about what are their common links in the world, and they were brought together in the name of IB, and it was just such a cool experience to hear those students, instantly form a friendship over, their common IB experience, and that they also had similar, experiences in the world, whether they were in inner city Philadelphia or, in Zimbabwe.
So it really kind of sums up what the IB program is about, the idea behind an IB style of education, bringing those people together, a common understanding, and growing and taking action from that.
Absolutely.
Very exciting. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us during your time today?
No, I think that just about covers it, and I want to thank you again for having me here, and I want to thank the county for showing such a strong commitment to bringing the IB to the students in Anne Arundel County.
Well, we appreciate your time with us today.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of IB, Expanding Minds and Opening Doors. If you'd like to learn more about the IB program or to apply for a seat in one of our magnet program schools, please visit us on the web. And remember, the magnet application window is open from October 1 to December 2nd, 2015 at 12 noon. Thank you.